Well, if that isn't the epitome of Spursy, then I don't know what is. We all hate it. We hate that. I absolutely detest the term Spursy. But you just cannot get away from it when you can go away, put in a decent performance against the champions of the country, come away 3-2 winners, and then, grind, really stick to your plan and grind out that result right to the death, to then come away to Burnley, who are right rock bottom of the Premier League, and end up losing the game 1-0. If that's not Spursy, then I absolutely don't know what is. And it is just so painful. It's like a dagger to your heart, absolute dagger to your heart. What went wrong? Well, ultimately, what a terrible condition to have to play in. Weather was absolutely awful, getting, wind and rain and all the rest of it. But listen, this is why these guys get paid the money they get paid to perform in that kind of environment. These are professional athletes. But first things first, you have to give credit to Burnley, who were really well drilled, really well organised. They had their banks of 4. They just would not let anything through. They defended, resolutely, and our wingbacks were non-effective. I mean, how many times did they actually cross the ball? I mean, if you're playing with wingbacks, that's the main thing, right? Get the balls into the box so that your attacking players can head them in or kick them in, or whatever it is, right? But if you're not making that option, then what's the point? There's no way you're gonna get through any other way. And there was opportunities to get up those sides, but if they're really ineffective, then you get what we got, So, again, for me, still calling out for a creative midfield player, someone who's going to really pull the strings. Bentancur, I was hoping, was going to be that guy who could give us something. I think he took a knock yesterday and they changed it for Winks, which was on the face of it, a negative move. He isn't that player. He isn't good enough, in my opinion, and I've said it quite a lot. Whilst he might be having a bit of a renaissance, he's still not the player that we really want in that position. So that, losing Bentancur was obviously a knock, and that didn't help us. Harry Kane, so deep, and I'll praise for him going deep. I give praise for him going deep because he does a great job when he does his passing. Is really good. But at the same time, he was absolutely crowded out. They're all over him all the time because, they know how dangerous he can be. So, and then when you're defending a couple of crosses and you're ball watching, which Romero was doing, and I've got, he is a standout for me, Romero. But when he's ball watching, the guy comes piling through the back of you and heads it straight in, a guy like, Ben Mee, then, and at the time when they scored, it was, pretty much game over, because Burnley are a team that will sit and hold right to the death. They've got a very good defensive record. Their issue has been scoring goals and so on. Their defence has been fairly solid, generally speaking. Not necessarily this season, but in previous times, that they are well drilled from that perspective, and they make it difficult, and they've always made it fairly difficult for us. I mean, I've had a bit of a hate relationship of Burnley for a while. If you look back to my previous videos about them, then you'll see how much I dislike them. So anyway, following on from the game is obviously the big talking point, with the interview with Antonio Conte, and him calling out that, asking himself, or asking the club to ask themselves, is he the right man for the job? Because he was brought in to improve things, and then having, 4 losses in 5 games is not improving things. It doesn't happen to him. And kind of putting everybody on a footing that he's going to resign, he's going to leave us, and blah, blah, blah. I think the other thing it's important to pick out of what he said was also that, you know, the club, you know, the players haven't changed. The coaches keep changing and the players haven't changed, which kind of, for me, puts it back into a little bit of perspective about him going back to the club and saying, look, you know, we're persevering with the same players. We're getting the same results. All the coaches can't be wrong because all the coaches are doing the same thing. So, you know, what else do you want me to do? You know, if you don't trust in me, if you don't think I'm the right man to turn this around, then you need to let me go. Or you need to stump up and start, you know, convincing me that the opportunity to improve this is going to be there, because you can only do so much with what you've got. And let's be fair, you know, he's improved things and so on, and there is a buzz about the team and so on. But he did have some easy games, and we've now gone through a period of some difficult games. Not that, you know, you expect Southampton, Wolves and Burnley to be difficult games in terms of quality, but these teams are teams fighting for their lives, right? So it's always going to be a difficult time, especially as you're progressing towards the end of the season. I personally cannot believe that Antonio Conte doesn't believe in himself. So I don't think that he's really saying, am I good enough? I think he's asking them to ask the question, am I good enough? Are you going to, you know, back what I need to do? I also don't think it would be good for him to walk away from Tottenham, because I think that puts a big hit onto your reputation of someone who, look, you can't hack it, you know, from that perspective. But the ultimate for me in all of this, if you really do, if Antonio Conte really does walk away, or he really does want to walk away from Tottenham and does that, then the big loss for me is how this affects Levy and Enoch and so on. Because where do they literally go from there? You know, they've brought in probably the best manager we've had since, probably since the General, in my opinion. And I know lots of people are going to call out Pochettino and what he achieved and so on. And I get all that. But ultimately, you know, this guy is a winner. He does win. He said himself, this doesn't happen to me. He's really got that winning mentality, whereas Pochettino, in my view, really didn't have that last killer bit for the Premier League. Anyway, so where does that leave them? Because where can they go from there? You know, it literally, if the best manager you've had for all that time comes along and says, listen, you need to change what you're doing, or there's no point in me working with you, then who else is going to come in and work under those conditions, except for people that are going, yeah, show me the money, you know? So for me, it's a real conundrum, and I really do worry. I think, you know, losing Conte would be the beginning of the end for the club. I think we would end up as a also ran team, you know, mid-table at best, you know, scrapping around there, going nowhere, achieving nothing, with a half-empty stadium and a disillusioned fan base, which then Daniel Levy and Joe Lewis wouldn't be able to send, because who'd want to buy it, you know? So it's a really difficult period for us, a really difficult time for Tottenham fans and for Tottenham itself. Something really needs to give, something really needs to be thought about. You know, if they want Conte to stay and they want to improve this club, they've really got to stump up and show what they're made of, because we cannot allow it to continue along the road that it is. So I'm you know, like I say, in my heart, I'm thinking Conte's an emotional guy, which you like to see, right? Because you want to see that passion from people. He's an emotional guy. It's hurt him. He's fed up, and I'm hoping that his comments and his demeanour are to send a message to the players, to the team, to the fans that he cares enough around this. You know, that's what I'm hoping, because if it isn't, the other option around it isn't really something I want to think about. The idea of losing this manager is a real worry, and another situation that we would have to start all over again with anything that we've kind of put in place, with any analysis that he's put forward to the club about his thinking and his ideas and so on. That all gets lost, and we have to start again with somebody else's mentality and stuff. So really, really difficult time. That loss has really, really hurt. You know, the problem now we've got is those around us, if they start grinding out results, you know, the horrible mob down the road, you know, if they win against Wolves, which we couldn't do, and then you know, we turn up on the weekend to play a team that just got smashed 6 by Liverpool, who then put up an absolute blinding performance, and we get nothing out of that as well. You know, it is a real problem. But listen, at the beginning of the season, when all this kicked off, you know, we were never predicting that we were going to be top 4. We were never predicting that we were going to get there and absolutely, you know, achieve anything this season. And so if at the end of the season we don't get top 4, you know, which is looking increasingly likely, then I think we just have to accept that, because that's what we expected at the beginning of the year. And hopefully go again in the summer, see what happens, see who we bring in, see who we get rid of, because I think that's as important as who comes in is who goes. And we see where it is. Ultimately, as I've said time and time again, we are addicts. You know, our football club is our football club. We're not going to change it. It's not like we're going to go, you know what, I've had enough of this football club. I'm going to go and support Derby County, or I'm going to go and support Bournemouth or wherever, you know, because they're on the up or, you know, whatever. We are stuck with Tottenham because it's in our heart, it's in our blood, and we're going to be stuck with it. So, okay, we might not spend as much money around the club and so on, and that will hurt them. We might not go to as many games and all the rest of it. But it will, trust me, even if you're not watching football, even if you're not invested in terms of going to the games and stuff, it still hurts when you lose. You know, all through the 90s, you know, I wasn't able to go to lots of games. And, you know, the only way to see results was coming through your teletext or whatever. It still hurt when you saw those scores coming through, even though you're not, you know, immersed in social media or whatever. So, you know, but there you go. And like I say, we go again at the weekend, and we'll stick with it, and we'll still keep cheering on the team, because that's what we do. So I'll leave it there. Cheer up, guys. Look out for a better result of the weekend. Let's hope. Up the Spurs.